All right. Twitter, which I'm actually on. I'm on this like semi or was prior to this video. This little Twitter fast, man. I wasn't gonna stay focused, do some other things, stay off of Twitter. Made the mistake of going on there, and I've been seeing some things even before I'd said that I was gonna, stay off of Twitter for 3 days. Surrounding this, because I don't want it to get demonetized, we're gonna call it the Modelo, okay? For this video, you know what I'm talking about. So the Modelo, right? And people, as I mentioned in my last video, are using this as an opportunity to put forth their political angles. But I want to talk about a more broad thing here, and that there are multiple sides of this. And since we already are going to the politics, let's go there. Let's go there, right? Let's go ahead and go there, because I'm seeing a lot of silly positions. And anytime some things like this happens, somehow parties that have nothing to do with it, or more precisely have been warning against it for decades, gets blamed. In this case, the libertarians. Seeing posts saying people there's no libertarians in a pandemic, blaming libertarians for this, blaming libertarian positions on this. And I'm like, dude, libertarians don't control anything regarding the American government. No person that is speaking honestly about anything regarding the political positions of people can look at the American economy and say that is what libertarians advocate. You can't on a general scale. But people, two examples that I'm going to lead with in this for the sake of this video. Seen two main positions that I've seen people address. One, you got foolish people that suggest that this is an example as to why, let's say, healthcare should be free. And by free, they mean government monopolized and government controlled. And that is precisely the complete opposite of what this should be showing you. Mainly, it's not just because of what's happening in Italy that you can point to that, but I'm not even going to prioritize that. When the government controls everything and they pay for everything, which they don't pay, they extract wealth from other people through taxation and so forth, and then that's how they pay for these services. But unfortunately, people think that it completely negates economic law, or it completely negates the concept of scarcity, which exists. That's the whole reason why you economize, is because scarcity is a real thing. There will never be enough of everything to satisfy the needs of every individual. But for whatever reason, people are under this illusion that if you add government to it, okay, you add government to it, then it becomes like it's going to be all good, right? Everybody's going to have as much as they want, as much as they, dude. That's not how it works. The last thing in a situation like this is that you want is because it's like just status control of it, because then they determine who and what, or more so who can get access to their services, their healthcare services that they've now controlled. And they're going to prioritize different people in different ways. You see that right now, even with places with free healthcare. This is why people cross over borders, even from Canada, to go here to get things because they break a leg or something. And because it's not high up on the priority list, they have to wait forever in order to get this. But that's why. Because they control it, therefore they're going to dictate who and what they are going to prioritize. And this is actually the complete opposite. You need economic efficiency in situations like this when you're dealing with a Modelo, where there may be an increase of usage of these healthcare services. You need that efficiency element where people are even privately, dare I say, be it in hospitals and so forth, deciding who or more so prioritizing that self, because at the end of the day, it's their bottom line that they have to worry about. It's no different from any other business. You accept that logic for a store that sells goods. I don't know why people wouldn't accept it with healthcare service. It does not negate economic law. It doesn't. Okay. But there's another side of this, which I've seen a lot. and that people are sitting here looking at, let's say, China or goods that are outsourced, right? And people are looking at it, and because it may impact, dare I say, the economy, people look at that and they say, well, this is why these concepts of free trade. First of all, you don't have free trade, but this is why they use this as an opportunity to demonize these concepts. So what they do, as with the situation I mentioned earlier, they're trying to treat the symptoms while completely, and I'm not talking about the Modelo itself, I'm talking about the symptoms of these problems, these government-created problems. They look at the solution, and then they use that to justify more control, as if it was already this sort of economic setup. In this case, that was a libertarian one. No, healthcare industry in America, no matter if it's you get it for free, is one of the most heavily regulated industries, if not the most heavily regulated industry in the country. It's not me making that up, right? It is what it is. And when it comes to this idea of trade, where people, let's say, outsource certain goods, that's not in itself a negative thing anyway. But they don't look at why that is the case. Obviously, if you are near a person, because you don't have to pay for, or near an entity, pay for the transport, it's going to be cheaper if that same good is produced a mile from you, cheaper for you to get it, as opposed to it being across the pond. Okay? We accept that, right? But the reason why this stuff is out, it's not merely because of what, child labor and cheap labor. That's not necessarily what it is. It's these heavy amounts of regulation here that prevent people from creating cheaper alternatives. Here, be it in labor, be it in, there's regulations all over, right? This entire economy. But in an event of, like, let's say medicine, this goes to show when you go rising healthcare costs, or healthcare costs in general, and certain medicines and stuff being they're able to charge so much. They don't look at the fact that you look at this disastrous patent laws that prevent people from creating a cheaper alternative because it's too much like the other drugs. So even if there are people that are willing to create this, that know how to create this and sell it for much cheaper, they legally cannot. And they have this government protected monopoly. You can look at Stephen Kinsella. He talks a lot about this as well. I've done videos about IP law. For whatever reason, people think that, even as a musician like myself, people think that I would be for this, and it's like, absolutely not. That's a state protected monopoly. Ideas in itself are not scarce resources like this phone. If I have a phone and you take this phone from me, you have stolen from me, right? I've been deprived of the phone. It's not like that with a mere idea. So my medicine is too much like yours. Like, I'm not stealing from you. You know what I mean? To create this, I'm actually using my own resources to create it, and I'm willing to do that. That in itself is a big issue in the healthcare industry, not necessarily specific to the Modelo, but this is something that exists. And in itself is why people outsource a lot of different things in medicine. And even then, because they can find cheaper alternatives elsewhere, even though people are willing to produce it and treat it for cheaper here. And don't get me started on, like, the FDA and, like, you guys, I know you guys with the vaccines and stuff of that nature, like, you probably so far down the line for stuff like that, mainly because of the red tape. Even when we talk about this Modelo testing here, you're seeing that in action, these level of bureaucracy where people, hey, I can test for this at the same time as this, but government, they have to go through these proper channels to even do that, right? This is a real thing, man. This is a real thing. It impacts the the economy, and to look at that and be like, well, this is the libertarians' fault, has always been silly. They always go to blaming free marketers and such. And it's like, you cannot sit up here and look at this like we advocated this. We've been warning against this. We've been warning against it, but they will always use these errors not only to take shots at other, like the concepts of more freer markets, but they will also utilize it to get more control of different things. It's like this with college. Another prime example of it. Higher education used to not be that much. Now it's astronomically, more than what it ever has been, and continues to rise because, and it's a direct trend when it comes to the state, getting involved in the grant and loan business. So what you have essentially is schools outspending each other with money that they know that they're going to get. So they can raise their tuition or whatever. They can get whatever facilities that have nothing to do with your actual education. They can hire these people that work for them and the professors that teach worthless degrees on curriculums and stuff that nobody's actually going to use. And certainly it shouldn't cost that much for them to be educated on this. And the costs are high. That's a government-created problem. But they say, oh, well, it's so much. People have took on these loans, debt, now it should be free. We wouldn't even been running into this problem if we actually go on what libertarians have long been advocating. But this, to look at, and it really is mind-boggling, right? To look at people criticize what exists now and somehow pin this on a party, folks like myself that are libertarians, when we have not had control of your government. There's not a bunch of libertarians in control of, and the ones that do, manage to, let's say, fill a position of power. Ron Paul, he's not insignificant in terms of influence on other libertarians, but insignificant in terms of influencing American policy, because there's not enough of him. What you got now, that's your own blame. You guys that are mainstream leftists, you guys that are mainstream conservatives and such. Sit up here and be mad at me all you want. It's not my fault. It's not our fault. It's not libertarians' fault. But hey, everybody has their political angle, and if they can use it to demonize these concepts that make people more free, that make economies thrive, they will do that. Definitely if it means them controlling, and this is why everybody is so attracted to the governmental control, because the government does not operate like a business. Businesses are subject to, they have to be as efficient as they possibly can, because they depend on the service itself to get as much money as they possibly can. Whereas to the government can tax, government can, inflate. You can talk about the Federal Reserve, and it allows them to monetize their debt. We're talking entities that are just into $23 trillion plus worth of debt, deficit spending right now, knowingly. No business could do that. None. But it's absolutely dishonest to look at this situation, what's going on with the Modelo, and your gripes, whether it be government inaction, or whether it be government, who you more so looking at this to, dare I say, advocate some concepts of free healthcare. And like, well, this is how the libertarians got it wrong. Like, no. That's not how this works. This is on y'all. This is on y'all. And by y'all, I'm saying the people that have advocated for this. It's not been us. What you see right now is not a libertarian society. And there are societies that may be more libertarian than or governments, and by let's say geographical areas, not society. Let's say geographical area. We live in a society, but let's say geographical area. But we don't live in a geographical area that's libertarian per se. Y'all a trip.